Doctor wiped the sweat from his forehead as he ran down the metal hallway of the mining station. The emergency call had come in just 10 minutes ago, but it felt like hours. His medical bag bounced against his hip with every step. Behind him, Captain and the security team tried to keep up. "What do we know about the crash site?" called over his shoulder. "Not much," replied, breathing hard. "Mining crew found a ship buried in the asteroid. Strange design, nothing in our databases." Nodded and pushed through the airlock doors. The mining station 442B was not a place where strange things happened often. It was a quiet rock floating in space, valuable only for its rare metal deposits. Most days treated miners with broken bones or space sickness. He never expected to deal with alien contact. The crash site was in the lower mining tunnels. The miners had been digging when they broke through into what looked like a ship's hull. The metal was unlike anything had seen before. It seemed to shimmer and change color in the artificial light. "There," pointed one of the miners. "We heard sounds coming from inside. Something's alive in there." Approached the opening the miners had cut. The ship's interior was dark, but his flashlight revealed smooth walls that looked almost grown rather than built. Everything had an organic feel to it, like being inside a giant seashell. "Hello," called into the darkness. "Is anyone there? We're here to help." A sound came from deep inside the ship. Not words, but something that might have been a voice. Looked back at his team, shook her head but had already made his decision. He climbed through the opening. The ship's corridor was narrow and curved. Followed the sound, his flashlight beam dancing across the strange walls. After a few minutes, he found what he was looking for. In what might have been the ship's control room, a figure lay crumpled on the floor. Had seen many injured people in his years as a doctor, but nothing had prepared him for this. The being was clearly not human, but she was beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Her skin looked like living crystal, translucent and glowing softly with an inner light. She was tall and thin, with features that were almost human but somehow more elegant. Her hair, if it could be called that, looked like spun silver wire. She wore clothing that seemed to be made of the same crystal-like material as her skin. But she was hurt, badly. One of her arms was twisted at an unnatural angle, and there was a dark crack running down her left side that looked like it went deep into her crystal flesh. Some kind of dark liquid seeped from the crack. Knelt beside her and opened his medical bag. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. The being's eyes opened. They were the color of deep ocean water, and they focused on with surprising intelligence. She tried to speak, but the words came out in a language he didn't know. Pulled out his translator device. It was military grade, designed to work with most known languages. After a moment, it beeped and began working. "Don't," the being said, her voice now clear through the translator. "Don't touch me." "I'm a doctor," explained, reaching toward her injured arm. "I want to help you." "No," she said with more force than someone so injured should have been able to manage. She tried to pull away from him. "Don't lay a hand on me again, soft flesh. Your kind's touch is poison to mine." Stopped, his hands hanging in the air above her. "Poison? I don't understand." The being struggled to sit up, wincing with pain. "Your people. Humans, I know of you from the old stories. Your touch brings death to your bioelectric field destroys our crystal matrix. Even being near you hurts." Looked at his hands, then back at her. The translator had identified her species. He had heard that name before in his studies of ancient alien civilizations. They were supposed to be extinct, vanished thousands of years ago. Yet here one was, injured and afraid of him. "But you're hurt," said. "If I don't help you, you'll die." The woman laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Then I die. Better that than the slow poison of your touch. My people know your kind well, the bioelectric death you carry in your hands." Sat back on his heels. Every instinct he had as a doctor told him to help, but she seemed terrified of him. He looked at her injuries again. The dark crack was spreading and her inner light was growing dimmer. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Ra, I was a seeker for my people." "I'm Doctor." He kept his hands where she could see them. "Ra, I've studied many alien species. I've never heard of human touch being poisonous to anyone." "Your knowledge is young," Ra said. "My people remember when yours first reached for the stars. We remember the stories of those who died from your touch." Frowned. Something didn't feel right about this. He had treated dozens of alien species during his career. Some were sensitive to human bacteria or pheromones, but he had never encountered anything like what she described. "The stories might be wrong," said carefully. Ra's eyes flashed with anger and fear. "Stories written in the crystal memory of my people's greatest leaders. Stories passed down through generations. You would call 10,000 years of knowledge wrong." Didn't answer immediately. He watched as Ra struggled to stay conscious. Her breathing was becoming shallow, and the light inside her crystal skin was fading. Whatever the stories said, she was dying right in front of him. "Maybe the stories are true," said finally, "but maybe dying alone is worse than dying from my touch." Ra closed her eyes. "Your people always think you know better than everyone else." "Sometimes we do," said with a small smile. "Sometimes we're just too stubborn to give up." He could hear calling for him from the tunnel entrance, asking if everything was okay. Looked at Ra one more time. She was beautiful and proud and dying, and everything she believed told her he was her enemy. But had spent his life saving people who couldn't save themselves. He wasn't about to stop now. Spent the next hour reading everything he could find about the His tablet screen glowed in the dim light of the ship's medical bay, where they had carefully moved Ra. She was unconscious now, her breathing weak and irregular. The information was limited. Most of what existed came from ancient ruins and old star charts. There had once been a powerful space-faring civilization, but they had vanished from the galaxy around 10,000 years ago. No one knew why. "Found anything useful?" Captain asked, entering the medical bay. She kept her distance from Ra, following quarantine protocols. "Not much," admitted. "The few records we have mentioned that they were extremely isolated. They rarely made contact with other species, and when they did, it usually ended badly." "Maybe there's a good reason for that," said. "Maybe they really are dangerous to touch." Looked at Ra. Her crystal skin had lost most of its glow, and the dark crack along her side had spread further. "She's dying, Captain. Whatever the risks are, she's not going to make it without help. And if helping her kills you, or worse, if it starts some kind of plague that spreads to the whole station." Had thought about that. It was possible that Ra was right, that human contact really was deadly to her people. But looking at the medical scans he had taken, something didn't add up. "Look at this," said, pointing to his tablet. "Her crystal matrix isn't random. It's organized almost like a computer circuit. And these energy readings I'm getting from her body, they're not chaotic. They're structured but weak." Squinted at the screen. "I don't understand." "Neither do I completely. But I think her body works like a living machine that runs on bioelectricity. And right now, that machine is shutting down." Had been thinking about this for the past hour. Human bodies generated electrical fields. Every nerve impulse, every heartbeat created small amounts of electricity. Most aliens weren't affected by it because their biology was different. But what if they were different too, in a way that made them sensitive to electrical fields? "What if the stories are wrong?" said. "What if human touch isn't poisonous to them? What if it's the opposite?" Raised an eyebrow. "You think human electricity might help her?" "I think it might be exactly what she needs." Before could argue, alarms started beeping from the medical monitors. Ra's vital signs were dropping rapidly. Watched the numbers fall and made his decision. "Captain, I need you to clear everyone out of here. If something goes wrong, I don't want anyone else getting hurt." Don't do anything stupid." "Too late for that," said with a grim smile. "I became a doctor, didn't I?" Hesitated, then nodded. "I'll give you 10 minutes. If you're not answering your comm by then, we're coming in with full gear." After left stood alone with Ra. Her breathing was so shallow he could barely see her chest moving. The monitors showed that her heart equivalent was barely functioning. Took off his gloves and looked at his hands. They looked normal to him, just human hands that had helped hundreds of patients over the years. But according to Ra's people, these hands carried death. "Well," said to the unconscious alien, "let's find out who's right." He placed his hands gently on either side of the crack in her crystal skin. The moment his skin touched hers, several things happened at once. First, felt a strange tingling sensation, like a mild electric shock that didn't hurt. Second, the medical monitors started beeping frantically as all of Ra's readings spiked. Third, her crystal skin began to glow brighter under his hands. Started to pull away, thinking something was going wrong, but then he noticed that the dark crack was beginning to close. The damaged crystal was somehow repairing itself where he touched it. The electrical sensation grew stronger. Could feel it flowing through his hands, down his arms, and into his chest. It wasn't painful, but it was intense. His own heart began beating faster, and sweat broke out on his forehead. Ra's eyes suddenly opened. She looked directly at, but instead of fear, her expression showed amazement. What are you doing to me?" she whispered. "I'm not sure," admitted, not moving his hands. "How do you feel?" "I feel," she paused, as if trying to find the words. "I feel like I'm waking up after a long sleep, like my body is remembering how to work properly." The crack in her skin continued to heal. Could see the crystal structure rebuilding itself, layer by layer, but the process was draining him. His vision began to blur and his legs felt weak. "Human," Ra said urgently, "something is wrong with you." Looked down at himself. His skin was pale and his hands were shaking. The electrical sensation had become painful, like his nervous system was overloading. "I'm okay," he lied, though he clearly wasn't. "No, you're not. Stop what you're doing. Let me go." "Not until you're healed." Ra stared at him. "You're willing to hurt yourself to save me, even though you think I might be your enemy." Managed a weak smile. "You're not my enemy, you're my patient." The healing process continued for several more minutes. Felt his strength draining away, but he watched with fascination as Ra's injuries disappeared completely. Her broken arm straightened and the crystal regrew perfectly. The crack in her side sealed itself and became smooth, unmarked skin. Finally, when she looked completely healthy, let his hands fall away. He immediately collapsed to his knees, exhausted. Ra sat up quickly, moving with easy grace. Her crystal skin glowed brighter than it had when first found her. She looked down at him with confusion and something that might have been gratitude. "The stories were wrong," she said softly. Nodded, too tired to speak. "For 10,000 years my people have believed that human touch brings death. But you," she touched the place where the crack had been, "you brought life." Finally found his voice. "Your people, where are they?" Ra's expression became sad. "Hidden, afraid, dying slowly because we cannot heal the way we once could." She looked at her hands, then at, "We have been alone for so long, we forgot that some touches bring life instead of death." Managed to stand up, though his legs were still shaky. "Maybe it's time your people learned the truth." Ra nodded slowly. "Maybe it is." 3 days later, sat across from Ra in the station's main conference room. She had recovered completely from her injuries, but was still weak from the healing process. Captain and several other officers sat around the table, all staring at Ra with mixture of curiosity and caution. "Tell us about your people," said. "The galaxy has wondered what happened to them for thousands of years." Ra looked uncomfortable. Her crystal skin had dimmed since the healing, though she was still beautiful. "My people did not vanish," she said finally. "We hid." Why? Asked. Ra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was filled with old sadness. Because we were dying and we were too proud to ask for help. She stood up and walked to the window that looked out into space. Long ago, my people were not alone. We had partners, beings we called the warm ones. They looked very much like you humans, though their skin was softer and their hearts beat differently. Exchanged glances with, "What happened to them?" We thought they died out in a plague. Their bioelectric fields grew weaker over generations until they could no longer sustain our healing bond. When the last of them died, we thought we had lost our ability to heal ourselves forever. Healing bond? Asked. Ra turned back to the table. The body is like a living machine, as your doctor discovered, but like any machine, it needs energy to repair itself. We cannot generate enough bioelectricity on our own. We need partners. Leaned forward, and humans have the right kind of bioelectricity. More than right, Ra said. When you touched me, it was like my body remembered what it was supposed to feel like. For the first time in centuries, I felt truly alive. But the stories said, your people believe human touch is deadly. Ra's expression grew ashamed. The stories were created by our leaders to keep us from seeking out new partners. They were afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of being dependent on another species again. Afraid of the pain of losing partners. Afraid that other races would use our need against us. Ra sat down again. So they made up stories about poison touch and deadly biofields. They convinced our people that isolation was better than risk. Understood, and your people have been slowly dying ever since. Yes, we can live for a very long time without healing partners, but we cannot truly heal. Small injuries become permanent. Sickness lingers for decades, and we cannot reproduce properly. Children need the bioelectric field of a partner to develop correctly. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed this information, thought about the implications. An entire civilization had spent thousands of years hiding and slowly dying because their leaders chose fear over hope. How many of your people are left? Asked. Perhaps 50,000, scattered across hidden colonies in dead systems. Most are weak and sick. Many have given up hope entirely. Stood up, though the movement made him dizzy. We have to contact them. We have to let them know that humans can help. It will not be easy, Ra warned. My people are deeply afraid of contact with other species. The fear has been part of our culture for so long that many believe it is natural law. How did you end up here? Asked. If your people are in hiding, why were you traveling alone? Ra looked embarrassed. I was a seeker. There are a few of us who still believe the old stories might be wrong. We search the galaxy for signs of the warm ones, hoping that somewhere they might still exist. And you found humans instead, said. I found something better than I hoped for. Humans are not just similar to the warm ones, you are stronger. Your bioelectric fields are more powerful, more stable. You could help my people heal in ways they haven't experienced for thousands of years. Frowned, but there's a cost. Was nearly drained completely from healing you. If humans tried to help all 50,000. The process would become easier with practice, Ra said quickly. And it does not require complete healing every time. Small, regular contact would be enough to keep most healthy. Used so much energy because my injuries were severe and my body had been without a bioelectric partner for so long. Thought about this. Like recharging a battery that's been completely drained versus topping off one that's already mostly full. Exactly. But still looked worried. Even so, we're talking about a major commitment. Humans would essentially become medical partners to an entire alien species. Is that such a bad thing? Asked. We've always been good at forming bonds with other species. Dogs, cats, horses, humans have a talent for partnerships. Those are animals, pointed out. This is different. Ra spoke up. It would not be slavery or forced service. The warm ones were our partners in every sense. They shared our technology, our knowledge, our lives. The relationship benefited both species. How? Crystal technology amplifies bioelectric fields. With human partners, we could create healing devices, energy sources, communication systems that work across vast distances. The warm ones lived longer, healthier lives because of their bond with us. Felt his excitement growing. You're talking about a symbiotic relationship. Humans help you heal, and you help us advance technologically. More than that, Ra said. I felt something when you healed me, a connection deeper than just energy transfer. For those few minutes, I could feel your thoughts, your emotions. I understood why you were willing to risk your life for a stranger. What did you understand? Ra smiled, and her crystal skin glowed a little brighter. I understood what compassion feels like. My people have forgotten how to care for others the way humans do. We became so focused on protecting ourselves that we lost the ability to reach out to others. Looked skeptical. And you think 50,000 are going to be willing to overcome thousands of years of fear just because one human helped one of their people? No, Ra admitted. But I think some of them will be willing to try. And if we can prove that the partnership works, if we can show them that humans are not the poison-touch death-bringers of their stories, then maybe more will follow. Made his decision. Then we need to try. We need to contact your people and offer them a choice. It will be dangerous, Ra warned. Some of my people would rather die than risk contact with other species. They might see you as invaders or threats. That's a risk we'll have to take, said, because the alternative is letting an entire civilization die slowly from fear and isolation. He looked around the table at the other officers. We have a chance to save a species and maybe learn something incredible in the process. How can we not try? Sighed, I'll contact Fleet Command. This is way above my authority level. Ra reached across the table and gently touched his hand. He felt that strange, tingling sensation again, but this time it wasn't draining. Instead, it felt like she was sharing some of her strength with him. Thank you, she said simply, for believing that some touches bring life instead of death. 6 months after first contact with Ra, found himself running through the corridors of the human research ship Harmony while explosions shook the hull around him. The Iran attack had come without warning, just as the ship was approaching the hidden colony of El. Doctor, get to the medical bay, Captain's voice crackled over the comm system. We have wounded coming in. Dodged falling debris and reached the medical bay just as the first casualties arrived. 3 humans and 2, all injured in the attack. Immediately went to work, but his hands were shaking. Not from fear of the battle, but from something else entirely. Over the past months, word of the human healing bond had spread across the galaxy. Most species had been curious but cautious. The Oran had been different. They had seen an opportunity. The Oran were a warrior race that valued strength above all else. When they learned that humans could heal other species with their touch, they didn't see it as a gift. They saw it as a tool to be exploited. Ra entered the medical bay, her crystal skin glowing with urgency. The Oran have boarded the ship. They're looking for you. Finished bandaging a human engineer's arm and looked up at her. Let me guess. They want to capture humans to use as living healing devices. Worse than that, their intelligence is better than we thought. They know exactly how the bioelectric bond works, and they've developed technology to force the connection. Felt sick. The idea of being used as a forced healer, connected to machines that would drain his bioelectricity until he died, was terrifying. But what scared him more was the thought of other humans suffering the same fate. Another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. Through the medical bay doors could hear the sound of energy weapons and shouting. How many ships do they have? Asked. Too many. This isn't just a raid. This is the beginning of something bigger. They've been hunting humans across the galaxy. Every ship that's left Earth in the past 2 months has been attacked. Closed his eyes. This was his fault. His decision to save Ra had led to this. His compassion had painted a target on every human in space. I have to surrender, he said. If I give myself up, maybe they'll leave the others alone. No, Ra grabbed his arm. That's not how the Oran work. They don't just want one human. They want to breed humans like livestock to create an army of healers they can control. The medical bay doors suddenly exploded inward. 3 Oran warriors entered, their scaled skin glistening under the lights. They were tall and muscular, with claws instead of hands and eyes like black stones. Each one carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Human healer, the lead Oran said in rough galactic standard, you will come with us. Stepped forward, putting himself between the warriors and the wounded patients. I'm not going anywhere. The Oran leader laughed. You have no choice, soft skin. You will heal our warriors and you will breed more healers for us. Your compassion will serve our empire. My compassion doesn't work that way. We will see. The Oran raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Ra moved. Her crystal skin suddenly blazed with light and she touched his shoulder. The same tingling sensation remembered from their first healing flowed through him, but this time it felt different, stronger, more controlled. What are you doing? Whispered. Teaching you, Ra replied. The healing bond works both ways. I can share my strength with you just as you share yours with me. Felt power flowing through his body. His fatigue disappeared, his thinking became clearer, and something else happened too. He began to understand how the bioelectric field worked, how to control it. The Oran leader fired his weapon, but was already moving. He reached out and grabbed the warrior's arm. Instead of the gentle healing energy he had used on Ra, pushed a different kind of bioelectric pulse through his hands. The Oran screamed and collapsed, his nervous system overwhelmed by the electrical surge, stared at his hands in shock. He had used the same power that saved lives to hurt someone. I didn't know I could do that, he said. The bioelectric field can be used as a weapon, Ra explained, but only by someone with the right intentions. The Oran want to force humans to heal against their will, but forced healing doesn't work. It requires compassion, genuine desire to help. That's something they'll never understand. The other 2 Oran warriors attacked together, found that with Ra supporting him, he could move faster than he'd ever moved before. He dodged their claws and weapons, reaching out to touch them whenever he could. Each touch sent a pulse of bioelectricity that disrupted their nervous systems. But he wasn't trying to kill them. Even in battle, couldn't bring himself to use his power for anything other than protection. He disabled them, made them unable to fight, but he didn't destroy them. Within minutes, all 3 Oran were unconscious on the medical bay floor. We need to get to the bridge, Ra said. If the Oran capture this ship, they'll have access to all our research on the human bond. And Ra made their way through the ship. They found other crew members fighting desperately against Oran boarding parties. Wherever they went, used his newfound abilities to disable the attackers, while Ra provided technical support with her crystal technology. They reached the bridge to find Captain and her officers surrounded by Oran warriors. The lead warrior, larger and more heavily armed than the others, had his weapon pointed at its head. Ah, the healer arrives, the warrior said. Surrender now or your captain dies. Looked around the bridge. There were too many Oran, and they were too spread out for him to disable them all before they could hurt someone. I'll surrender, said, but first, let me ask you something. What happens when you capture all the humans? What happens when you force us to heal your people? The Oran leader grinned, showing sharp teeth. We become the strongest warriors in the galaxy, unstoppable in battle. And what happens when we die from exhaustion? What happens when you've used up all the humans? The leader's grin faded slightly. We will breed more. Will you? Asked. Because here's the thing about humans, we only heal people we care about. Force us to do it and the power doesn't work. You can't breed compassion. You can't force someone to genuinely want to help others. You lie. Smiled, try it. Put that collar you brought on me. Force me to heal someone I don't care about. See what happens. The Oran leader hesitated, could see doubt in the warrior's eyes. The Oran had built their entire plan around controlling human healers, but they had never considered that the healing might not work without genuine compassion. Besides, continued, you're thinking too small. What do you mean? Looked at Ra, who nodded. Together, they had discovered something in their months of working together, something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy. You want to capture humans to make you stronger in battle, said. But what if I told you that humans and working together could create technology beyond anything you've ever imagined? What if instead of making enemies of us, you tried making allies? The Oran leader raised his weapon. We take what we want, we do not ask. Then you'll never have what we really offer, said sadly, and you'll lose this war. What war? Smiled. The one that's about to start, because you just made the mistake of threatening something humans care about, and there's nothing more dangerous in the galaxy than humans who are protecting someone they love. As if summoned by his words, the bridges lit up with the image of incoming ships. Human vessels, cruisers, and ships from a dozen other species that had allied with them. The galaxy had seen what the Oran planned to do with human healers, and they had decided to stop it. The Oran War lasted 3 months and ended not with a massive battle, but with a single touch. Stood in the medical bay of the flagship Unity, looking down at Commander, the highest-ranking Oran officer they had captured. The warrior's scaled skin was gray with infection, and his breathing was labored. The wound in his side, received during the battle for the station, was not healing properly. He's been asking for you, said Dr. Sarah's assistant. For the past 2 days he keeps saying your name. Nodded. He had expected this. Word of the human healing ability had spread through the Oran forces, causing their own troops to question their leader's decision to make enemies of the humans. Has he said anything else? Just one thing. He keeps asking why you saved his life during the battle. Remembered that moment clearly. Had been trying to kill Captain when an energy weapon had torn through his armor. Could have left him to die, everyone would have understood. Instead, he had rushed over and provided emergency medical aid, just enough to keep the Oran alive until proper medical care could arrive. Doctor, said weakly as approached his bed. Why did you heal me? I was your enemy. I tried to kill your people. Pulled up a chair and sat down beside the bed. Because you were hurt. That's what I do. I help people who are hurt. Even enemies. Especially enemies. Anyone can help their friends. Was quiet for a long moment. My people say you humans are weak because you feel too much. They say compassion is a disease that makes you unable to fight properly. What do you think? I think, struggled to sit up. I think my people are afraid of something they don't understand. Over the past 3 months, this conversation had been repeated thousands of times across the galaxy. Oran soldiers, captured or wounded in battle, had been treated with the same care and compassion that humans showed their own people. It was something the Oran had never experienced before. Commander said, your wound isn't healing because your body is rejecting the treatment. You're fighting against getting better. Why would I do that? Because you're afraid that if you get better, you'll have to go back to fighting, and I think you're tired of fighting. His eyes widened. For a proud warrior race, admitting to being tired of war was almost unthinkable, but had seen this look before in soldiers of every species. The look of someone who had seen too much death and wanted something different. What would you have me do? Asked. Let me help you heal. Not just your body, but your understanding of what strength really means. Reached out his hand and placed it gently on his wounded side. The familiar tingling sensation began, but this time it was different. Instead of the forced, mechanical healing the Oran had tried to create, this was the natural flow of bioelectric energy that came from genuine care. But something else happened too. Through the connection, felt the doctor's genuine concern for his patient's welfare, his hope that healing this one enemy might help heal the war itself. "I can feel your thoughts," whispered in amazement. That's part of the healing bond. When someone truly wants to help another person, the connection goes deeper than just physical healing. "You really do care about my welfare, even though I am your enemy." "You're not my enemy anymore. You're my patient." As the healing continued, began to understand something his people had never grasped. Strength wasn't just about the ability to destroy. True strength was the ability to create, to build, to heal things that were broken. "Doctor," said when the healing was complete, "I need to speak to my people." 2 days later, stood before the Oran High Command via holographic transmission. The War Council was meeting on there, trying to decide whether to continue the failing war against the human alliance. "You were captured," High Commander Oss said with disgust. "You have brought shame to our people." "No," replied calmly, "I have brought understanding." He told them about the healing, about the connection he had felt. He explained how human compassion wasn't weakness. It was a form of strength that the Oran had never encountered. "The humans don't heal their enemies to make them weak," said. "They heal them to make them strong. They believe that a galaxy full of healthy, strong people is better than a galaxy full of corpses." "Weakness," Oss snarled, "sentiment." "Is it?" asked. "Then explain why we are losing this war. Explain why our own soldiers are surrendering rather than fighting. Explain why 3 Oran colonies have already joined the human alliance." The council chamber was silent. The truth was that the Oran war effort was collapsing, not because of superior enemy firepower, but because their own people were beginning to question what they were fighting for. "The humans offer us something we have never had," continued. "They offer us partnership instead of conquest. They offer us the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves." "And what do they want in return?" asked another council member. "They want us to stop trying to enslave them. They want us to stop seeing every interaction as a battle to be won. They want us to learn what they call compassion." Oss rose from his throne. "You have been contaminated by human weakness. Guards, arrest this traitor." But the guards didn't move. Instead, one of them stepped forward and removed his helmet. "High Commander," the guard said, "I was at the Battle of. I saw human medics healing Oran wounded even while our forces were still shooting at them. I saw them cry when they couldn't save one of our people. That's not weakness. That's something we've never learned how to do." More guards began removing their helmets. Then members of the War Council began standing up. Within minutes, Oss found himself alone at his throne. "This is madness," he shouted. "We are warriors, we take what we want." "And what has that given us?" asked. "A galaxy that fears us, an empire built on the pain of others, a life where the only emotion we know is anger." Oss was silent. "The humans have shown us a different way," said. "They have shown us that true strength comes from helping others, not hurting them. They have shown us that the strongest bonds are formed not through conquest, but through compassion." 3 hours later, the Oran High Command voted to end the war and open negotiations with the human alliance. 6 months after that, stood in the observation deck of the new Galactic Healing Center, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the station. Humans worked alongside, sharing their bioelectric gifts to help heal injured people from across the galaxy. Oran security forces protected the station, their warrior culture now focused on protecting healers rather than conquering enemies. Ra joined him at the window. Her crystal skin glowed with health and happiness, and could feel her contentment through their permanent healing bond. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "That first moment when you decided to ignore my warning and heal me anyway?" thought about everything that had happened. The war, the fear, the thousands of lives that had been changed by his simple decision to help someone who needed it. "No," he said finally. "I think that's what humans do best. We see someone who needs help and we help them, even when we're told not to, even when we're afraid, even when it might hurt us. Even when they say, 'Don't lay a hand on me again.'" Smiled and took her crystal hand in his human one. The familiar tingle of their bioelectric connection flowed between them, a reminder of the bond that had changed two species and brought peace to a galaxy. "Especially then," he said. "Sometimes the most important thing you can do is reach out and touch someone's life, even when they're afraid to let you." Through the window, they watched as a new ship docked at the station. It was carrying refugees from a war-torn system, people who needed healing and hope. Squeezed Ra's hand and headed for the medical bay. There was work to do. After all, he was a healer, and there were always people who needed his touch.